Okay, so here we are on to video 7. I changed the angle of the camera a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see a little bit better now. I just have my old truck on the table here. I am going to be disassembling it. I need a few parts off of it for my new build. I had originally intended to take the Seld-M-Bend axles out of the rear, the Vanquish knuckle weights off of the front, and now I've decided I'm also going to take the rowdy plate from the motor mount, electronics plate, only because I'm impatient and I want to have this thing 100% ready by the time the chassis gets here. All I need to do is bolt it together and drive it. So I don't really need this truck for another couple of weeks. I can probably get it back together so that it will work, but I'm not really that concerned about it all that much. So I'm gonna start ripping this apart. I'm gonna grab the parts off of it, and then I'll be back to continue the video once I have the parts off of my old truck. Alright, I'm back. I just ripped apart my other truck to grab the knuckle weights, rowdy motor plate, electronics mounting plate, whatever you want to call it, and my Seld-M-Bend drive shafts for the rear. I forgot to mention earlier too, I got a few things in the mail today. First thing was my radio, my receiver. This goes with my 4PL. This is a R2106 GF. I've already taken it out of the case. I've decased it. I've already got it right here. I took it out of the case. I wrapped some electrical tape around it to hold the antenna in, and I made sure to leave a little spot there for the light so I can still see the light, and it's ready to go. I've decided with this that I hate crimping the ends on for the servo leads and the ESC leads, so I'm just going to solder them on to the pins. I hate crimping those. I don't trust them, especially when I crimp them, so I'm just going to solder them on. I know I can trust solder, so I'm just going to do that. I'm not too concerned about wrecking it. I think I only paid $20 for it on eBay, so it's not a huge concern of mine. But I received those two things, or that, in the mail, and I also received these batteries. They're something different I haven't tried before. I'm not sure how they're going to work out. They say they're 35C continuous and 70C burst with a 5C charge rating, and they're 450 milliamp. I'm hoping that they'll turn out pretty well. They're reasonably priced. I can't remember what I paid for them, but it wasn't a lot. I bought 4 of them, so I'll see how they go. Being that this is a much lighter rig, I may have better luck with the smaller batteries. I didn't have much luck with the smaller batteries in my other truck because it was a much heavier rig, and it seemed like the cells would drain unevenly, so I'm hoping that I have better luck with the smaller batteries in this rig. So I guess I can show you my knuckle weights, do the weights on this, just to give you an idea of what it's running. I'm just going to leave them as they are and see how I end up with the new truck. I was pretty happy with my performance on my other truck. This one I'm going to have considerably lighter, but I don't know really. I'm just going to have to play it by ear and see what happens. I'm toying with the idea of some different rims as well, so I'm not sure how it's going to end up. But just so you can see, I've got one big ring and then one small ring that's cut in half, stacked up, so to keep the center of gravity a little bit lower with the 2 other rings. And then I've got this ring, which is from a low-C mini crawler. It's supposed to go in the low-C aluminum beadlock rims, the aftermarket replacement, and it just fits the diameter of the Vanquish knuckle perfectly. So all I did was drill a hole and tap a 3mm screw into it. That hole was already in the weight, so I just tapped a flathead 3mm screw into it, and it holds on there pretty solid. I only need 1 screw. When it's tight, I loosened it because I had to loosen it to get the knuckle weight off, because that's where the knuckle is. But when it's tight, I have no issues with it. So the overall weight for this, with these 4 screws, just to make sure it's relatively accurate, It's 179 grams per front corner that I had on my previous truck in just knuckle weights. For people who want to know ounces, it's 6.3 ounces. So that'll give you a little bit of idea of how much weight I was running on the front of my last truck. We actually weighed it unscientifically, but at the last competition we just threw it on a scale and weighed the front and rear bias, and I was running, I think, around 5 pounds, just over 5 pounds on the front, and my rear was 2 pounds, so the overall rig was just under 7 pounds, and it was heavily front bias. So I really liked how it performed, though. It performed quite well. So I want to keep the same bias, I think, but I want to lighten it up overall, but maintaining a relatively similar ratio from the front to the rear. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the rear together here, throw these Seld-M-Bends in there, and I'll speed up the video so you don't have to be bored. It's a pretty simple process for this, though. You just stuff them in, put the lockout on, and it's done, really. Put on the hexes. Oh yeah, that was another thing that I got, I forgot to mention. I got these hexes from Hobby King. 12 mil hexes. These ones are 12 mil with a 5 mil bore for the front axle, because that's the stock axle, and then these ones are the 5 mil hexes with the 6 mil bore. Now these should fit on the Seld-M-Bends. I'm relatively confident that they will, but I'm not certain. I may need the 7 mil in the center. I may just drill these ones out. I'm undecided yet. I hope they fit without having to modify them, but I'll have to see. So I'll get to putting those Seld-M-Bends in the rear and speed up the video here, and I'll be right back. So as you can see, this isn't going quite as smoothly as I'd hoped. My previous truck, the axles literally did just slide out. I must not have pulled off as much plastics inside on this one as I did on the other one. But I've got it all apart now, and it is confusing me more than anything. The axle shaft lengths are different on each side, and there we go. That one just seated inside that spool, and now this one should seat. And I got about the same distance on either side, so I think I've got them on the right sides. And the motor is hooked up, so it's gonna be tough to spin, if I'll be able to spin it at all. Yeah, I can't spin it, but it should have no problem, since I cleared that out in a previous video. I think it was video 1 or 2. Basically I just put the cases together and drilled through with a drill bit. Can't remember the size right now, but it's in the video if you check out the other video. So that's the Seld-M-Bends installed in there. I'm just going to go ahead and put the axle back together now. And it looks like the 6 mils are not gonna fit on there. It measures out to 6 mil on my digital caliper here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll turn on this light here. So my digital caliper there, it measures out to 6 mil. So these are 6 mil, or supposed to be. Maybe they're not actually. Maybe that's just how they measure it. See, I got these 5 mil ones that did work on the front, so they are measuring at 5 mil. So let's measure one of these 6 mil ones and see what the problem is. Huh. The problem is it's not actually a 6 mil, it's a 5 mil. And they stamped 6 mil on it and sent it to me. Unless that's the thickness. It is. That's the thickness, that's not the bore. So that was my mistake for assuming that the measurement on it was the bore, but it's not. It's actually the width of the hex. So I'm going to have to drill these out, which isn't a big deal. So I'll try to do that now. Actually, I'll do that later. That's not a concern of mine right now. That's a minor thing, really. I want to move on to the electronics. I'd like to get that done today, so throw away the rear axle there, put it away, move this stuff up out of the way. And grab the front axle. Here's the front axle, and so what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be putting the radio ideally right here, and on the rowdy plate, which goes between the motor and the motor plate, it's going to sit approximately here, but obviously a lot closer to the motor. So I'm going to put the speed controls like this on the front of the rowdy plate and have the radio up there. Here I'm going to run the connectors up and solder them onto the receiver, and ideally I'm hoping that the battery will fit right here behind the speed controls on the rowdy plate. I know it's going to hang off and it's going to be close to the chassis, but I think it'll work okay. I'll just velcro it on there, and hopefully I can get away without having the axle mount battery. I don't like the idea. It just hits a lot of stuff. The servo hits enough stuff by itself. The battery is a concern I don't want to have. So I'm going to get the rowdy plate mounted up to figure out where everything's going to sit, and I'll speed things up until then. Alright, so that's mounted up. It's a little difficult to anticipate where the links are going to be on the truck without having all that stuff, so I'm kind of just estimating where this rowdy plate is going to be as far as an angle goes, pointing up. I'm really not too concerned about it, but I can always adjust it just by loosening the motor screws and rotating the rowdy plate, because it's got those slots. That's nice and convenient. You can just rotate it all you want. So what I would like to have happen is have this here, and where did that receiver go? The receiver up here. I think there will be enough room because I've got this link mount and I've got it extended up a little bit. I'll probably use the top or the center hole on it, so there should be enough room for the top links. If not, I can always change things too. It's not like it's permanent. So I'm gonna take the shrink off of here though and extend the wires for the rear. I'd like permanent solid wires all the way to the rear. I don't like the connectors. I'm going to remove the connectors on the front speed control as well and just solder them directly over there. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to unwrap this speed control and resolder some solid wires onto the board that will be long enough to reach to the rear of the truck. So I'll speed this up though. Once again. I think that looks pretty good. Might go with this kind of setup. I just have the ESCs and the radio just zip tied to the motor for right now. Realistically, that won't really be an issue because the steering arm is going to be right below that anyways, so it should deflect most of any hits on the zip tie. I'll probably servo tape it additionally. The zip tie I just kind of used as a bit of a gauge as to see where I want to be here, so that I can start soldering things into place permanently. As you can see there though, I have the rowdy plate, and just above the rowdy plate I have the speed controls right on the motor, and then the radio on the top of the motor. I'm not totally confident that this is going to clear the top links, but I'm hopeful. The zip tie, like I said, it can move or be removed entirely once I get some servo tape on there. I'm just doing this for mock-up purposes to kind of figure out what I want to do here and where everything's going to be. It looks like my camera's telling me that's about enough for right now. Camera, the battery's dying and the memory card is full, so I'm just gonna finish this up and then I'll go dump off the memory card and grab the charger, and might do some more tonight, might hold it off till tomorrow, but either way I'll be back. Not sure how well you can see that. Maybe if I zoom in. No, not happy about that. Anyways, got the wires all soldered up onto the receiver, and they look pretty good. I'm happy with the results. Like I said, camera's done for, so it's telling me I got about 1 minute left. So I'm just gonna do up some little finishing things, put the motor plate cover back on, and a couple little things, and I'll be back in a little bit. So I'm back. Had to charge the battery on the camera and dump out the memory cards. But yeah, as you can see on here, the receiver, I've got it all soldered. Like I said, I decided to do this because I hate trying to crimp on the connectors because it never works for me. And soldering it was just as easy. I can easily desolder them and put connectors back on them if I need to. So it turned out alright. I'm just gonna go ahead now and take the motor wires. Oh, the camera's not set very well. Take the motor wires for the front and solder them onto the motor on the front. They're gonna be really short wires, so that's actually kind of good for the front because it gives it the direct power, less resistance, as minor as the resistance would be anyways. But I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so I've got my radio here. I'm just gonna fire it up and plug this in and see if the front axle works, because the motors are wired in now. The servo is wired in. Only the one wheel is gonna turn with the servo though, because the other wheel, there's no steering rod yet. Still waiting from that from Chaotic. From Chaotic. So I'm just gonna find my battery here and plug it in and see how things go. Steering works fine. Let's try just a little bit of throttle. No throttle. The radio is bound, but my speed control, both of them are unhappy. Let's try again. may need to program the speed control. So I do believe that's just a full throttle on the radio while you plug this in. Full reverse. Neutral. And they're happy now. And there's my forward, reverse, it's working as good as it can right now. Both ESCs calibrated nicely, and the steering, oh, the steering stopped working now. I'm going to go ahead and solder up the rear axle here and just make sure I didn't do any damage to it. It's a quick thing, so it'll only take me a couple minutes to do, so it's worth checking to make sure that it's going to work once my chassis and stuff does finally get here. I'd like to know that everything's going to work nicely. Okay, now that I've got the motor hooked up, the rear motor, let's see how this goes. Should work a little better than the last time, I hope. Turn on the radio. Both speed controls bound. Forward motion. Getting forward on the front, but not on the rear. There we go. Rear is going backwards, which is okay. That just means I have to reverse the motor wires. But I have to undo it all anyway. It is a little loud. I might have to redo the mesh or something like that. Maybe re-grease it, I'm not sure. I'll dig it into it and see what I can figure out. But so far so good. All the electronics are working fine. Except for the servo, it's still not working. I'll have to look into that. Not sure why that would be. The motors are working okay. I'll have to try and figure out what's up with the servo here though. So I think I've come to the conclusion that the problem is the BEC. I've got the BEC hardwired directly to the the servo, and normally I don't do that, but in this situation I did. So I'm relatively confident that it is the BEC that's the problem right now, because the radio receiver still has power, which means the BEC within the speed control is working. I know both speed controls are working fine. So by process of elimination, that tells me that it's something to do with the BEC, because that's the power delivery to the servo and nothing else. It doesn't deliver power to the receiver. So I'm gonna have to pull this apart and see what I can figure out. Stuff like this happens in builds. These BECs, they're not really known for their reliability out of the box. They seem to be hit and miss. You can get a good one and you can get a bad one. A good one will last you forever, a bad one will last you for never. Usually if they're gonna die, it's gonna be within the first couple of minutes, hours of their life. Usually doesn't last long. If it's gonna die, it'll die quick. But it could also be related to the fact that I removed the capacitor. I really don't think that's related. because there are capacitors on both speed controls, which should be more than sufficient to make up for the lack of capacitor on the BEC. So I'm just going to pull the BEC out of here and unwrap it, see if I can see anything. See if maybe my solder contacts are not quite as nice as they should be, or what I can see. Worst case scenario, it's a new BEC. It's $20, 25 bucks. It sucks, but it happens. Yeah, the light on the BEC is on, but it's very, very faint. So I think it's gone. Yeah, I just hope it didn't take my servo with it. Okay, so I was a little concerned about losing my servo with that BEC, so I soldered the servo onto the receiver, and the servo is still working fine on the receiver. So yeah, it was just the BEC, which is kind of what I suspected and hoped for, actually. I think that's it for today. I might tidy things up a little bit, but I can't do much without another BEC, and it's late here, so I'll have to pick up a BEC tomorrow and get it all put back together, and hopefully it'll work fine tomorrow. Talk to you then. Alright, so I'm back today. I got a new BEC. This one died on me. I'm gonna blame myself for that one. I'm gonna say that I'm pretty sure it was because when I hooked up the rear motor wires onto the ESC and then I fired it all up to get it to try to work, I forgot to cut this wire. I had attached it all as one solid wire either end on the ESC, and I forgot to cut that, so it was heating up excessively. I would assume that there was some feedback or something into the BEC, and that's what cooked it. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to go ahead and get this BEC wired up in there, and hopefully we'll be good for now. I'm going to remove the shrink off, take the capacitor off, desolder these 3 wires, solder on the servo power and negative, and then solder these onto the power and negative that I have coming out of the ESCs, and stuff it all up underneath the servo pretty like how I had it before, and see how it goes. Alright, so it looks like everything's working well. The throttle was a little jumpy there because I forgot I put the knuckle weights on. They're still not fitting properly. I need to change out the hubs. For now, I'm just going to take a couple of the brass rings off. I've got a couple of brass rings on like this. For now, I'm just going to take a couple of those off because realistically, I just want to get this thing working right now, and I don't know if I can find those hubs locally, so I'm just going to take them off for now and see how things go. I'll probably end up changing them before I actually drive it to the .350 hubs. Right now I have the .225 hubs because that's all I had. And I didn't feel like buying any more, and they were out of stock of the 350s when I ordered these wheels, so I'm going to look into it though. I'm not even 100% sure I'm going to keep these wheels. They were the original wheels that I wanted, and I still do really like them, but I've got another plan in mind. I'm not sure how well it's going to turn out. It's kind of a DIY thing, custom setup that I've been pondering. I've got a few supplies for, but I haven't got the tools for it right now, so I'm just waiting for the tools to try to see what I can do. But yeah, that's the electronics all set up in there. Battery, speed controls, radio, BEC is underneath the servo, and the servo all on this rowdy plate. Final determination of whether or not this is going to work is going to depend on the links. The lowers I'm not too worried about, it's the upper links. Depending on the placement on here, it may interfere, but I won't know that until I get everything in and give it a shot. So I'm just gonna throw this other knuckle weight on, and I think from there there's not much more I can do until that chassis arrives. I'm hopeful that it's going to arrive or be shipped out soon. Chaotic was saying on RC Crawler there that it would be likely shipped out Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. They were saying that last week, so hopefully that's still relatively accurate, because right now it's Tuesday, and that means I can expect to see a shipment notification tomorrow. I hope that happens. I can't be totally confident in it, but I'll find out tomorrow when if I do or do not get that notice. So that's it for today. That was the update that I wanted to do, was just getting all the electronics put together, getting the Seld-M-Bends installed in the rear axle, and pulling the old stuff off of my old truck. The knuckle weights are going to take a little more work. I'm going to have to take off this thick ring, maybe put the smaller rings back on. But once I get my larger SLW hubs, then that shouldn't be an issue at all. That's what I currently run on my other truck. I may even just take those hubs for now, because I don't have the knuckle weights on that truck at all anymore. So I may take those hubs off of that truck and just throw them on here for now. But I will need another set eventually, so I might just wait for that as well. I haven't decided. But anyways, that's video 7. And hopefully the next video is going to be the chassis install video, and then we can get some runtime on this thing.